Scott Goodale.
Thank you, and I really did want to start by congratulating Kevin on the year that Penn State had, until he kind of rubbed it in my face a little bit what you're doing. But it's a great year for you. It's a great year for Coach Franklin. Obviously, he was on the hot seat quite a bit, so it's good to see him. He's a good guy. He supports their wrestling program, so I'm a fan of his. It's also neat to see. I didn't realize it's a basketball event, and I know a bunch of you are thinking, what the heck am I doing here as a wrestling coach? And maybe some of the coaches think that way as well. But it's kind of interesting. I see a lot of coaches that I know, some that I've played for, whether it be all-star games, some I've coached with in all-star games. There's some coaches out here that I coached while at Jackson, and there's some friends, there's some family friends that I didn't think I would see today. I knew I'd see you, Vicki, but there's some others that I spend New Year's Eve with, July 4th parties with, so whatever happens on those days, we keep that low, right, Fitzy? We keep that low. It's great to see Stacy again, Steve, who's covered us at Jackson, when I was at Jackson from day one and every day since I've been at Rutgers, and has given us great coverage. It's great to see you. And a wrestling guy at a basketball event could be unbelievably scary. It really could, and scary enough where they even sent our associate AD to make sure I did the right things and said the right things. So Jeff Brown, I'm glad he came and is with us. But I think I know a little bit about building programs. I think I know a little bit about student athletes and what it takes to get to a certain level, and the fine line from being good to great. And maybe that's why I'm here today, and it's not just for the athletes. I think a little bit of what I'm going to say is about coaching and some of the things I did as a coach that maybe can help out some of the younger coaches in here. Just real quick, my story, and Kevin mentioned a little bit, my whole life was Jackson. And I won't call it Jackson Memorial. To me, it's Jackson, and that's the way I'll always mention it. But it was my whole life. That's all I ever wanted. I was very, very fortunate. All I ever wanted to do was go away to school, come back, and take over at Jackson. And I said it from when I was in high school, when I was competing at Jackson, and my friends used to make fun of me. You're going to be a gym teacher. And I said, first of all, it's a physical educator. It's not a gym teacher. And you're right. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to be a physical educator, and I'm going to coach. And that's all I ever wanted to do. So I was really, really fortunate. Grandfather coached 35 years in Far Rockaway, New York. My dad coached Little League Baseball, Pop Warner football. My mom was an assistant athletic director in the 8th grade program, and she's probably one of the tougher Goodales. So I knew what I was going to do, and I was fired up to do it. And that's what I did. I went away for 5.5 years to get my degree, because I started as a journalism major, and I realized I had to get into teaching, and so I went back, and it took me 5.5 years to graduate. I came back as I was doing a little student teaching in Pennsylvania. I was running back to spend time with Coach Barnes in the football program, who I have an unbelievable amount of respect for. Coach Barnes, one of my mentors and someone I really, really look up to. So that's what I did, and we were fortunate. You know, I was fortunate. Football, I loved coaching on Friday nights. I loved it. There was nothing better than that, and it got me away from the wrestling scene. My whole life was going to tournaments in wrestling and coaching kids in wrestling. And the football gave me 3 or 4 months to really spend with a different group, even though a lot of those guys were wrestlers. And we had staffs where our football staff was part of my wrestling staff, and our wrestling staff was part of the football staff. So it kind of worked hand in hand. And hopefully they're still doing that now. I haven't been in touch too much with them, but I think that's a secret of success right there. And then I did a little golfing. I coached a little golf, and I didn't like it because I wasn't better than anybody on the team. So I struggled with that, and I didn't like playing 9 holes in 4 hours. I liked playing 18 in 3 hours with my buddies. So I got out of that, got into a little softball, but I just loved coaching. I loved teaching at Jackson, and then all of a sudden we started having these great years. And it was going to get better. We had this 6th, 7th, and 8th grade group at the Get School that were going to be better. Meanwhile, our programs, like Kevin said, we finished #1 in 2006, #1 in 2007. But probably more importantly, we were #4 in the country and #5 in the country in back-to-back seasons. So, which was great, and we were going to get better. And we were going to try to win I guess they call it a mythical national title. For us to do that, it would have to take beating Blair Academy. Long story short, a guy comes up to me, approaches me, and said, "Want you to write out a 5-year plan how we can make Rutgers wrestling better." And I was like, "All right, I'll do a 5-point plan. 5-point plan how to make them better." I said, "I'll do it." My wife and I, over a bottle of wine, on a napkin, and this is a true story, came up with a 5-point plan, everything from recruiting to coaching to camps to academics to clinics and things like that. And I handed, the guy's name was Bill Ard, was an offensive guard for New York Giants. Son was a really good, he was close to the athletic director at the time, Bob Mulcahy, and wrestling was going to be dropped. So I came up with this 5-point plan. The state tournament March, I handed it to, I had somebody look at it. I wasn't the best at English. I had one of my buddies, who's now my assistant coach, look at it and drew it up real nice and handed it in. State tournament goes by, month goes by, and I'm ready for this 8th grade class from Getz to get up to the high school, and we're going to be great. We're going to win another state football championship. We're going to win another wrestling championship. And then I get this call to come in on an interview, and it was a 6-hour interview, and I didn't want the job. I didn't even think. I just thought I was kind of, how are we going to get Rutgers wrestling better? Because we don't want wrestling in New Jersey should thrive. And that's kind of the reason I was going up there. And it didn't take long for me to understand this is an interview, and maybe there's going to be a decision I have to make. And just fast forward and to speed this up a little bit, it was a hard decision because, like Kevin said, I loved everything about Jackson. I couldn't wait to wake up every morning, go into the high school, and do what I did, and that was to teach and coach sports and be around a great group, and that's what I was going to do. And next thing you know, 4 months later, for some crazy reason, I decided to take this job, and now I'm preparing for not, and I'll say Toms River North because my kids go there, but I'm not preparing for Toms River North, Toms River South, or Toms River East. I'm preparing for Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, Minnesota, top 5 teams in the country. So a little bit different world, but it's been exciting. It's been exciting. It's been 10 years. I can't believe it's 10 years. Our first recruiting class was the 3rd best recruiting class in the country. So when I leave Jackson, the first recruiting class we get, the 3rd ranked in the country. I thought to myself, this is going to be easy. We are going to win a national title. Because that's what I said. I was young, a little bit cocky, and I thought if we could have the number 3 recruiting class in the country, we're winning a national title. But I soon found out, although they were great wrestlers, there's so much more to it. There was character, all those things. There was integrity, there was passion, a willing to do the sport year round. There was a lifestyle. Again, going from good to being great, there's a fine line. There's a real fine line. It's doing everything right. So there is a lifestyle to it. I became an enabler. All I wanted to do was win. All I wanted to do was win. I would let kids get away, and this was a great recruiting class, and as they're freshmen and sophomore, we won a lot of matches. 21-2, 19-2, 20-3, top 15, top 10 in the country on any given year. But we weren't doing the right things off the mat. So we went by this, I came up with this thing, the Big 3. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's socially, academically, and athletically. And we were cutting a lot of corners. Our best kids, those recruits I talked about, the best kids in the country on the high school level, couldn't manage it at the college level. There's a lot of distractions, right? There's a lot of distractions. So we had all these guys. We'd get to the national tournament, and we'd do nothing. Great dual meet team. The national tournament in wrestling, it's what you remember for. It's about the last 3 days of March. So we didn't do very well those first 6-7 years at the national tournament. We adopt this theme, the Big 3, socially pretty self-explanatory, right? Everybody nowadays, and maybe my socially, you guys are thinking is parties and things. Of course, that goes without saying. That goes without saying. You can't be successful if you're one of those guys or one of those girls, and the party's the most important thing to you. But it's more than that. It's being able to socialize. Everybody's doing this now, right? Everybody's tweeting and texting and Snapchatting, and they're going live now, this new thing, live Facebook, whatever it is. I saw one of my guys do it. It was actually pretty funny, but I don't get it. Too much energy gets put into that. But being able to socialize and communicate and let your professors or your teachers know what you're a part of, what you're doing, and things like that, that was really important to us. Every freshman that comes into our program, we make them take a public speaking class so they're able to speak and communicate, and it's not just about a text message. So those are some of the things we were doing, and it became very, very important. Our guys didn't know how to socialize or communicate, and that was frustrating to me. Academically, I mean, you can't have a banquet or speech unless the speaker talks about academics, right? But it goes hand in hand. If you're struggling academically and you're cutting corners academically, you can't prepare. And for me, it's all about preparation. It's not so much about the matches or the games in your case, or the wins and losses, although they're very important. It's about the preparation, and you can't prepare if you're not getting it done in the classroom. And the guys I was talking about, those great recruiting classes, they were cutting corners academically. They were cutting corners. They were cheating it. And then eventually we're going to find out. And now it became a coach on the athlete type thing, and it was constant. So I guess what I'm getting to is the people you're around, the people you surround yourself with. That was very, very important with me. So a lot of my recruiting philosophy changed. It wasn't about getting the best athlete in this room. It wasn't about that. It had to be everything. It had to be everything. It had to be socially, they were solid, obviously academically. And you don't know, listen, I'm no brain surgeon. I was a 2.8 guy in college who was one of those guys who probably cut corners. I had to work my tail off, but that helped me to where I am now and with my guys. But if you're cutting those corners, you can't be successful. You can't prepare. You can't practice the right way. It's constantly on your mind. So we're out in front of it now. Get out in front of your schoolwork. Get out in front of your finals or your midterms so you don't have to worry about it. And for 2 hours, you can practice hard. And then we can get on back to our academics. Athletically, it goes without saying, and I'm not talking about, again, just your practices. It's, we have this thing in our program, if we bring a guy in the office, eventually we're going to say, you're a 3 o'clocker. You're really good at 3 o'clock. Everybody in the country is practicing at 3 o'clock. McQuaid, when are you practicing today?
Practice 4 to 7.
All right, they go at 4. Vicky, when do you go today? 2 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we practice at 3. And those are the people that just show up and work hard. And I get the high school coaches, this kid will be great for your program. He really works hard. Everybody works hard at 3 o'clock. What separates you? What makes you different? What are you doing at 6 a.m.? What about 8 o'clock at night? How are you eating? What is your nutrition habit? How about your hygiene? How are your sleep habits? All that stuff matters, and that's the wrestling part of it. That's the wrestling. That's the athletic part of it. Your body, that's important. I didn't know that when I was in college. I didn't know that when I was in high school. But all that stuff mattered, and those are some of the things we were introducing at Jackson back in the day. And I thought we were ahead of the game. Our sleep habits, our hygiene, how we train, how we lift weights, what we're doing at 6 a.m. And then the next thing you know, you get a bunch of guys, and here's really a little bit of, the message. You get a bunch of guys or a bunch of girls where 6 a.m. becomes really, really important. 7 a.m. becomes really, really important. And our Jackson teams would meet. They didn't need me to tell them to meet. They would meet on their own, and that's how we got really good. We did more than everybody else. We prepared harder than everybody else, at least the way that's what I thought. And I think that's going on right now at Rutgers. I don't have to tell a group of guys to get in the practice room. There's no cutting corners academically. Socially, that will always be an issue. That will always be an issue, especially today. Especially today, it's always going to be an issue. Social media, right? It's hard. That's hard. That's a coach's job, and now you're in charge of 30 of them. So the leaders in this room, your captains, here's one quick thing. I've never had a captain in 21 years of coaching. Never had a captain, and I will never have a captain. I brought a guy by the name of Kevin Mallist, whose dad is a state trooper. A lot of you guys probably know Kevin. I brought Kevin Mallist in, played football at Rutgers under Coach Shiano, guy I really respect, played in the NFL for a bunch of years. I asked Kevin to do me a favor. I think I'm going to name captains. I want you to interview these guys, and it was thorough. It was like, it wasn't a 30-minute go. It was like a 3-day go of interviews and following them around and eating lunch, breakfast, dinner with them. And this was the year, it was 2 years ago, I was going to do it. I was going to name 3 captains. And I was ready, and I thought these guys were ready just because of their lifestyle and how they lived and how they treated everybody and all that good stuff. And Kevin interviewed him. He goes, these guys are ready. Not sooner than a week later, one of them went out to Penn State tailgate, got a little jammed up. Not a big deal, but a little bit of trouble. One of them tried to cheat on a hydration test. The most honest guy I've ever coached in my life tried to, for you don't understand, making weight wrestling is a little bit difficult. So he put his finger on the wall to make him lighter so he can hydrate or not hydrate, certify for a certain weight. Couldn't use that guy. And the other guy should really probably still be my captain, but I just never named him. I said, that's why I just don't want to do that. But we have leaders, and our leaders know who the leaders are. I just don't put an extra, you're the captain, because if that captain screws up, next thing you know, it's a ripple effect. Well, if he can do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it. So that's just the way I go about running it, and you take that for what it's worth. I just never had a captain. I don't think leaders are necessarily have to be the rah-rah guy. I actually get frustrated with some of our guys whenever you see somebody go on Twitter or social media, whatever the case might be, and tell you what they're going to do and how great they're going to be and what they're going to do, chasing medals, chasing hardware, going to dominate. It never works out. You end up probably losing when you start talking like that. So our leaders, we really talk to them quite a bit about, don't be that rah-rah guy, lead by example. Stay off all the other stuff. Nobody needs to know how good you're going to be. You prove that when you're either on the court, on the field, on the wrestle mat, whatever the case might be. And it's worked for us. The guys that always tweet, I'm going to do this, I'm dominating my opponent, they end up, usually they're not winning. And there's a reason they're talking like that, right? They're trying to convince themselves. They're trying to convince themselves they're better than they are. I could sit up here all day and talk about recruiting stories. I got some really, really good ones. I won't bore you with them. But I will say this, the recruiting process is days like today, and obviously I'm not recruiting anybody in here, but how are you around your teammates? And we look at that really, really hard. Home visits are the best thing I ever do. It's the best. We have a lot of Italians on our roster, and there's a reason I do home visits. And I base it basically on how the food is. If the food is good, there's a good chance they're going to get an official visit. If it's bad, it's over. It's over. You bring very little to the table. So, but and this may seem weird. I go into a home visit, and this kid's going to spend 5 years of his life with me, and it becomes my family. And the first thing I do is I want to see. Well, it's not the first thing I do. I get a little bit comfortable. But where do you live, man? Where's your room? Let's check out your room. And that's weird, like some kids are like, this guy wants to see my room. Yeah, I want to see how you're living. I want to see how you're living. That stuff's important to me. And it's worked. And I've walked into a house and I've saw the way a student athlete has spoken to a parent, and I've picked up my cell phone and said, listen, I have a family emergency. I have to leave, never to speak to that kid again. And I've went into a room and said, wow, this kid, there's no way he'll make it at Rutgers based on his posters and his flags and then I've walked into a room where there's been some good stuff, maybe there's a Bible, maybe there's some real sports thing, and I'm not going to get into faith here, but those are the kids I kind of want around my program, and all that stuff matters. So home visits are super important. And one quick story, a kid committed to us, and he was the best kid in the country, and he committed to us and trained with us to go to the junior nationals. He trained with Rutgers, and our guys, we trained him, our coaching staff. We prepared him to win a junior national title, and he went and he won a junior national title. And the minute he won a junior national title, here comes Iowa. Here comes the University of Iowa. So he took back his commitment to us and said, Coach, I'm going to I rushed it, I'm going to kind of open it up. I said, you didn't rush it. You didn't rush anything. You wanted to go to Rutgers. You won a tournament, and now you're bigger than Rutgers, which is fine. But I went down, did a home visit, and I went and I said, let me see your room. I want to, check it out. Where do you live? You upstairs? Yeah, come on up, Coach. I go in his room, Iowa wrestling all over his room. I didn't even get to the apple pie. I said, guys, we're leaving. That guy, and this is a true story, Josh Jeva, he went on to the University of Iowa, never beat a Rutgers kid. Never beat a Rutgers kid again. And that was personal, and that's true story. To the coaches out there, you're the leader. The coaches, you set the example every single day, and this is the way I live my life, and I will forever. You can never have a bad day. You can never have a bad day. Forget what's going on at home, and it could be bad. It could be bad, but you can't have a bad day. When you go into that practice, and you may be having one, but your players and your staff can't know it. They can't know it. Energy and enthusiasm, two things you can control, always. Every day of your life, you can control those things. You need to bring that every single day. Your players will feed off of you. That's the God's honest truth. They will feed off of you. If you're down because you have something going on at home, or you're down because you lose a recruit, or you're down because you sat up in an office for 5 hours and your academic advisor's calling you and crushing you about what this kid's doing and not doing, you go down in the practice room, nobody can know that. Nobody can know that, and that's really important. Make sure you get to know every single person in your program, and this goes for the leaders or the captains out there. Every single person. We have all seniors here, I think, mostly seniors. You got to know the freshmen. You got to know your freshmen. I tell my sister and I fight about this all the time. She doesn't even know her freshman players. You got to know your freshman players. It's important that your seniors are taking care of your freshmen. That's the next group. But you got to know everyone. Coaches, you got to know everything, everyone, and what's going on. And get personal. Find out, because you have no idea what a kid's going through. You have no idea why a kid may have dogged it today. You have no idea why they're struggling to get their hand raised or struggling to win games. You don't know unless you make it part of your life and part of your job to deal with it and figure it out. And that's important. I knew everything that was, at least I think I did, I knew everything that was going on at Jackson. My best friends, the custodians, they were my best friends. Why? Because I wanted to get in on Christmas Day. I wanted to get in on January 1st. When it snowed, we practiced. Those were my best friends as custodians. And we had this guy, McQuaid, you might remember Tinker, right? Tinker was a 92-year-old man. He weighed about 85 pounds. He still smoked cigarettes. I'd slap him a $100 bill Christmas Eve and said, we'll see you tomorrow. He's like, oh yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. But those were my cafeteria ladies. They were my favorite people. You got to know everybody, and we practice in the cafeteria at Jackson. But the custodians at Rutgers, I know every single one of them in our building, and it's important. They're part of the program. Your managers, your statisticians, everybody, they're all part of your program. So that's really, really important. Know what's going on with their siblings, their aunts, their uncles, all that good stuff. All right? And then here's the most important thing, and I'll finish up here. Get everybody to believe in your mission. This is maybe another weird thing I do. I don't do goals until right now, right? Because every freshman that comes in, or everybody starts the new year, they all have these great goals. What do you want to do? I want to win a national title. Do you really want to win a national title? Are you really willing to put in the work that it takes to win a national title? Because your effort and your energy has to match your goal. So I don't do goals until we'll start doing them next week. I'll bring the guys in. All right, first semester's up. Here's where we're struggling. Here's what do you think? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I ask them, do you really want to put the effort into whatever it is you want to do? So I think the coaches, they gotta believe in your mission, whatever that mission is. And maybe you've done goals already. And maybe one of them is to win this tournament. Have you put in that effort and energy? Are you willing to do it every day to reach that? But you got to get everybody to believe in the mission. And the last thing I'll leave you with, and this is kind of, I end every speech with this, there's everybody will say, and you read all these books, and I follow a lot of great coaches. Jim Tressel, I even wrote him a letter. His big thing was about dreaming, right? I have this dream, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I don't believe in dreaming. I just don't believe in dreaming. For me, I dream one day to be a millionaire. It's never going to happen. I'm a wrestling coach. It's not going to happen. It's a dream. That's the way I look at it. I believe in a vision. There's a vision. I had this vision when I decided to sign my name and take this job. I had this vision that one day, and I said we would win a national title, but it's changed a little bit. One day we would compete for a trophy at the national tournament. That sounds a lot better, right, Steve? It's not cocky, it's not over the top, it's realistic, right? So, but that's my vision, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it, and we're flirting with it. We're flirting with it. We're in the thick of it. We're in the thick of it right now, and it's maybe it's 2 or 3 or 4 really, really good guys. Maybe it's another good recruit. I don't know what it is. I know it's a lot of hard work. I know it's a lot of hard work. I know it's surviving the Big Ten waters. I know that because the top 10, we were 10th in the country last year, but we were 5th in our conference. So it doesn't get easier. It's 3 good days of March, but you got to have the right people with you. You got to have a village, but it's got to be the right village. It's got to be, and I made mistakes early on. I was an enabler, allowing kids to get away with things they shouldn't have been getting away with because it was all about the win. Things have changed so much since then, and I know we're in the thick of it, but every day there's a vision. We attack it every day. And we'll go in not today because I'm here, but 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It'll be about academics, where are we at socially, and what are we going to do to prepare for the Midlands Championship December 29th. That's every day, and it goes week to week. And we attack this vision every day, and that's just the way I live my life. I encourage you to do the same. It's really important to the coaches. You have a great responsibility right now. You're in a great position of, I wouldn't say power, but power. You're an influence. You will always be an influence on these student athletes. To the students, you're in a great area for athletics. Basketball at the Shore Conference, wrestling at the Shore Conference, football at the Shore Conference. There's areas that I travel around this country. The Lehigh Valley is great. The middle of California, the Clovis area is a great place to go and recruit. Sports are so important out there. But the Shore Conference, whatever sport you do, whatever sport, there's so much passion from the people, from the athletic directors to the coaches. The opportunity to coach and play in this area, in this conference, is something I hold very special to my heart. It's something I was so fortunate enough to do, and I'll probably do again one day. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor. Thanks for asking me. It's been great.